I suppose by means of introduction, I'm Avril and I'm a senior copywriter at Boys and Girls, and I'm also one of the creatives on the Choose Radio account, which means that it's my job to make people kind of reevaluate the power of radio, reassess how amazingly creative it can be, inspire people to make great radio, essentially create radio that, and I really hope my clicker gets radio notice. And the design department in Boys and Girls went a bit wild with the transitions, and I've never seen my slides this big, so get ready for some jazzy transitions. So one of the pieces of radio that we made for Choose Radio last year, I kind of want to kick off sort of a little icebreaker and share it with you. You may have heard it before. It was a bit divisive. It was a bit controversial. Before I talk about it in too much detail, I'll play it for you. You judge yourself, and then talk about what happened afterwards.
Your father-in-law's a great guy, but you don't want to see him today because right now you're in the gym changing room. He gives you an enthusiastic wave and a thumbs up, which makes his towel fall down. He bends over, slowly, his body stiff from a step aerobics class. You see everything, in all its sweaty glory. Sticks in your head, doesn't it? And they say radio isn't visual. Don't underestimate the power of a radio ad. ChooseRadio.ie.
It did get noticed by one man in particular, and I hope he's not here, love you Joe, but it was by this man. So it was a whole thing, it was a whole fiasco, and Joe had callers in and there was outrage or whatever, but actually loads of people also love the ad.
I think there's lots and lots of ways of describing the power of radio as a medium of advertising. Why not have somebody like Micheál Murray come out of the shower describing Croke Park on All Ireland Day and drops the towel or whatever else happens?
If he bends over, you see everything, including all his sweaty bits.
That might be in a hospital environment, for instance. But surely some of Heaney's poetry would probably be effective.
And it can be absolutely mesmeric.
That could paint a picture. You could almost sketch it.
In all its sweaty glory.
To get across the idea that radio is a good medium.
You see everything.
It is the most offensive ad. It is dehumanising. It's demeaning. It's vulgar. It's coarse. It's making me sick. Paint a picture, but don't paint that. Could you not paint a decent picture? I mean, that isn't the picture we want to have painted. The ad is disgusting. I mean, it's just awful. It's disgusting. I just don't like it. The copywriter should get an award. It's a great ad. It's certainly doing what it intended.
I think the ad is sheer brilliance, Joe.
It is just vulgar, disrespectful in every way, totally distasteful. And I will turn away if it persists. His imagination is so stupid. I'd let him go.
But basically what we loved about it was that it really sparked conversation about radio. The kind of the guts of the spot was proving how visual radio could be, and it was really important for us to create radio that wasn't going to be ignored, and really kind of got people to sort of stand up and take attention and kind of have a conversation about how powerful radio can be. So the reason why I think it did that was because it was entertaining. And at Boys and Girls, we place a huge emphasis on entertainment because we believe the best way to unleash the commercial benefit of creativity is through the lens of entertainment. Why entertainment? Because... Hang on a second. So I'm just going to talk holistically about advertising in general, right? People hate advertising. I mean, the statistics kind of prove this. 64% of people think advertising is annoying. 97% of people say advertising is intrusive, and so on and so forth. And actually, there's been 1.7 billion ad blockers downloaded, which, if you think about it, it makes people's objection to ads the single biggest boycott in human history. So that's why we need to look at how we can wrap things in an entertaining message. Because people see us being they see us as advertising as an interruption. And it boils down to kind of a simple fact. People download software to avoid ads, but people also download software to steal entertainment. We've forgotten the deal, right? And the deal is a very simple contract that exists between the advertiser and the audience. Thanks, Will. You give us your attention, razzle dazzle, we entertain you. That's the simple contract that we need to engage in. We will reward you with an entertaining message if you give us just a small bit of your attention. So that's kind of the crux of it. And I mean, this simple contract is kind of what brought us Cadbury's Gorilla. It's what makes us look forward to the John Lewis ads every Christmas. And, taking a radio ad as an example, it's what makes us look forward to the Barry's Tea Christmas ad the Barry's Tea Christmas ad. And looking at that kind of a bit closer, if we prioritised efficiency over entertainment with that ad in particular, that ad is 1.5 minutes long. If we'd gone, do you know what, we can make this ad 20 seconds and maybe we'll get the brand in the first kind of 5 in case someone flicks the channel and they miss it. And also, just after Christmas, it's January, so people are super health conscious, so let's slip a decaf message in there too, and then while all these decisions make total sense and you totally understand in the moment why people are making them, what you end up with is an ad that people don't want to listen to, like a radio ad that no one wants to listen to, much less looks forward to listen to. So that's kind of the crux of it. We have to master the art of the smuggle. And radio is the perfect medium to do this in because it's a storytelling medium. It's all about kind of getting people to lean in, drawing people into the story and then kind of rewarding them at the end with a payoff.
Emergency services.
Someone just stole our car.
Okay, where was it stolen?
In front of the house. I saw the whole thing.
And did the person force entry?
She had keys.
She had keys? Okay. Can you describe her for me?
Mid-30s, brunette, really nice hair.
Can you tell us anything else?
Yeah, she was wearing my wife's leather jacket. She loved that jacket. Oh, hold on. She's coming back.
It's all right, just stay with me.
Sorry, she's trying to say something.
I forgot my purse.
She says she's forgotten her purse. Oh. Hang on. Whoops.
The new Harvey Nichols Beauty Lounge, now open in Knightsbridge. Careful, they might not recognise you.
Yeah, okay, this sounds quite like, and in your face, especially when the screen is about 8 foot by 10 foot. But this is an opportunity, right? When so many radio ads are the same and they all start to blur into the background, that creates an opportunity that you can create something that disrupts that and is really stand out. And another kind of, I think we're all guilty of this at some point in our career, more often than not, our spots are 30 seconds long and we have so much that we want to say in those 30 seconds and there's a temptation to cram them with all our brand messages.
I've been working at the audio dump for, 27, 28 years, something like that. You see all sorts of airwave pollution here, bad stuff, bad ads, bad copy. Not the good stuff now, just the leftovers, the speed reads, the jingles, the two in the kitchen, as we call it in the biz. You know them, the Mary, where did you get your beautiful windows, Mary? Well, Joe, I went down to blah, blah, that sort of thing. We got a lot of disclaimers, too, Where
do you want these T's and C's to go, boss?
What are they, financial T's and C's?
Yeah.
The big warehouse, Joe, the big warehouse.
Grand.
Yeah, this is where it all goes. The good stuff doesn't come anywhere near here now. That stays in people's heads. Just the other rubbish.
With 8 out of 10 Irish adults tuning in, give people something worth listening to.
chooseradio.ie.
But I suppose what that does is that creates an ad that feels very shouty and intense, and it's very hard to listen to. And I was thinking about this yesterday, and an analogy popped into my head, right? And it's like an analogy where if we imagine two people down the pub, okay, and there's one person, you've got one person who's an amazing storyteller, and they have everyone at the table kind of in the palm of their hand, and you're enraptured and you're listening and you want to hear the end of the story and you don't know where it's going, but you can't help but listen and be entertained. And then on the other hand, you have someone who's really intense and talking really fast, like who do you want to listen to, that kind of way. So I suppose it's such a simple analogy, but I suppose it kind of comes back to that. When someone's super cramming so much in, it's really hard to digest it. Whereas if someone takes the standpoint of being a really engaging storyteller, it really kind of hits the point home. And I had an example here, which I think a lot of you might have heard, so I'm going to talk around it. And this pointer is about thinking beyond words. And while words are so important to the craft of copywriting and the craft of script writing for radio, there's a multitude of different ways to set a scene using audio and kind of sonic storytelling. And the ad that I was about to play you, that you may have heard, it was an ad that we did for Choose Radio, and it was a tribute to Gay Byrne. So I'm not sure, did anyone hear that? And basically it was a really beautiful kind of replaying of the Late Late Show theme, but really sad and really, and there was only, I think, one line of copy in that whole script, but it captured that feeling better than packing the script full of words ever could.
Good night and God bless, Gay. And thank you from Ireland's independent radio stations.
So my next point is, if we're kind of thinking really creatively about creative advertising, we need to sort of set aside a lot of the preconceptions. And a big preconception is that radio as a medium is incredibly passive. And I'd actually challenge that. And I actually would say, I'm actually tempted to get my laptop and put it beside the mic, because the next piece of radio I just think is so, it's such a, could I do that actually?
The more someone makes you think about your body, the harder it becomes to ignore. Your tongue, for example. Usually you hardly notice it's there, but when I mention it, you can feel your tongue bumping against your lower front teeth, the tips just resting on them. You notice your tongue feels just a little too long for your mouth, and you notice it never really lies still. You move it about constantly without thinking about it, backwards and forwards, and from side to side. Suddenly it feels strangely wet and heavy in your mouth, doesn't it? A few seconds ago, you hardly noticed your tongue. But just one message made sure that you can't stop thinking about it. Now imagine the hundreds of messages girls are exposed to every day, subtly changing the way they think about their bodies. See how you can help at selfesteem.dove.co.uk. Dove, be your beautiful self.
I mean, how often have we heard the phrase hard-working tactical ad? I think radio ads have become the sort of the silent workhorse of the advertising world. Keep your film free of all the multitude of messaging, keep the poster nice and clean, shove it all in the radio ads, and it's just, they get overloaded. And radio is such an amazing medium, and it can be so powerful that it's not just a box ticking exercise, and if we really kind of respect the power of radio ads, then we can wield that. And this is a really interesting statistic that I wanted to share, and especially in relation to this kind of idea of the tactical radio ad, because the research shows and proves that rational messaging, when wrapped in an entertaining or emotional package, becomes far more effective. So there's definitely an argument to be had that, you know, even the most kind of even the most sort of tactical ads, once they're in an entertaining wrap, it just makes them way more effective. And kind of going back to my slide, you know, when so many ad blockers exist, and this is kind of the state of play, you know, radio is almost like the final frontier. It's the one place where you still have a captive audience where people aren't paying to block the ads. And there's a massive opportunity there. You know, 8 out of 10 Irish adults listen to radio. There's just a massive opportunity to kind of really land that. One pushback that, you know, a lot of people might have is that, you know, well, the thing that I have to advertise is an incredibly boring product or service. How do I possibly make that entertaining? And this ad's really interesting in that it takes possibly one of the most boring products I've ever heard of and makes one of the most entertaining radio ads that I've ever heard. So I'd love to play it for you now.
British people who fist bump. That guy who stops at the top of the escalator to check his phone. Public FaceTimers. People who say, amazing. That guy on Twitter who ends every tweet with, let that sink in. Bartenders who call themselves mixologists. New mums on Facebook, #blessed. Gym bros, bike bros, coffee bros, just bros. Instagram couples. That teacher you had. You know the one. Your ex. Your ex's new partner. All your ex's new partner's friends. The world is already full of pricks, so we made a glucose monitoring system for diabetics that doesn't have any. The Dexcom G6. No needles, no pricks.
I'm going to leave it there.
I work a lot directly with radio stations. Avril obviously coming from an agency background. So I wanted to address that idea of being creative in terms of your direct clients, not your agency clients, and that whole idea of how do we do that with those smaller, like that case in point, that sort of smaller, more kind of that ad that you think you can't do something creative with, you know, that how can you possibly take a boring product and be creative with it? So I'm sort of speaking to that, although I do work in agencies and I work sort of fairly large agencies on big radio campaigns. I do an awful lot of work with radio stations, some of whom are here today, with their so-called smaller clients, direct clients. So that's kind of what I want to look at. How do we be creative in that environment, in a sort of busy daily environment, trying to do something creative and exciting with the little guys, you know? So creativity, I think, is the problem. The word here. We've got a session on creativity in Irish radio. I think partly that word is the thing that hampers us. I believe in creativity. I use that in my job title. I love that word. But I think for many people, it hamstrings them a little bit. This word hanging over. We've got to be creative. We've got to be exciting. We've got to be really funny. We've got to take something. And Avril talked a lot about entertainment, and I totally agree with that. But if we have that hanging over us, and we see ourselves not as creative people, you know, not a copywriter like I am or Avril is, and we're kind of day-to-day sales reps trying to bring in the business, and then we've got to write an ad quickly on our way back to the office to then send it to them when we get back. That idea of creativity is a real problem, and I want to kind of just almost take that off the table for a moment. I believe in it, and I think it's appropriate, but this is my one and only slide, and this guy here, if you don't know who he is, this is, you can't see, it says down here, David Ogilvy. You've probably, if you work in advertising, you should know who David Ogilvy is. If you don't, then go out, or after this session, go on Amazon and buy his book, Ogilvy on Advertising. If you're working in advertising, and you haven't read Ogilvy on advertising, please do. I encourage you to do that. It's the best, funniest, most brilliant insight into the whole field of advertising, how we do it. It was written many years ago by this late, great father of advertising, David Ogilvy. And this is one of his most famous quotes: if it doesn't sell, it isn't creative. If it doesn't sell, it isn't creative. What we're trying to do is sell products. I think Maria touched on that, saying shifting boxes. We're shifting boxes, basically. It's a very kind of crude way of putting it. But we are trying to sell products. If it doesn't sell, it's not working. Clients don't come back, and we don't have advertisers. So that's the first thing we have to have in mind. And that doesn't mean we're dumbing down. To sell something well, you have to be entertaining, you have to be engaging, you have to be sometimes funny or a little bit irreverent, like the Pricks one there, fantastic piece of creative. One of those ads you hear and you think, I wish I'd come up with that, I wish I'd written that. So I want to look at that whole idea of the agency, and I spend a lot of time in ad agencies, versus the radio station working directly with clients. And I think there is one major difference here. And this is something when I do my workshops on creativity and advertising and writing advertising, especially in radio, I bang on about. And it's the one takeaway from this from what I'm saying, I'd love you to sort of take away. And that is the brief. The brief is everything. If you want to be creative, if you want to be effective, if you want to sell products, if you want your advertisers to come back again and again and again, you have to write a good brief. There's a reason I think you have really exciting, interesting radio ads that are produced via agencies, and some of the slightly more mundane ones. You think, yeah, that was just a homegrown one, written probably in station by someone like me. And you think there's a difference there. And often the difference will be that there's a brilliant, brilliant brief has been written. When a client goes to an advertising agency, they're investing in their advertising. They're realizing they're going to an agency who are going to put time and effort into strategy, planning, research, and pulling together a really great brief and understanding the product, really interrogating the product, understanding what it's got to say, what its unique, singular selling proposition, its USP is, how to emotionally do that, what the customer behaviors are, why people buy, why people don't buy. And this all goes into a brief, and that's given to the creative team, the copywriters or art directors, whatever it might be. And when you read a brief like that, you almost don't have to be too creative. It just often leaps out. You get it, you can see it, it's there, it's written between the lines because the work has been done. But often, and I understand this, we're working in a busy environment as salespeople going out, trying to see as many people, we're looking at volume. Increasingly, we're trying to get as much interest in radio advertising as possible in a hugely competitive market, media market. You're just trying to get numbers, you're trying to get people in. I understand that. I deal with you guys a lot. We get on really well. Many of you sort of salespeople who I deal with are here in this room. We have a great relationship, and I understand totally the pressures you're under. Getting out there, selling, trying to write a quick brief and giving it to the likes of me, saying, come up with a 30-second radio commercial. What I'm talking about here is trying to aim towards this new kind of nirvana, this sort of paradigm shift of spending more time really educating your customers, your clients, in how to create an effective ad. I know what it's like. You're there, you just want to get the details quickly. What's your name? What you do? What you sell? How long have you been in business? What are your opening hours? Quick, write it down, cut and paste a bit of copy from their About Us section on their website, stick it in the brief, and give it to the copywriter, and expect a great, creative, brilliant piece of advertising to come out. And often it won't. And that's not shifting the blame. We do our best and we'll try and find something there, but it's not our job as copywriters to find the USP, to find the selling point, to try and pinpoint what the main emotional driver is behind buying that product. That's really the client and you interviewing the client. The client should know, but often they're busy, you're trying to get 5 minutes of their time. But I'm just saying we need to aim to that place where the brief becomes everything, where you find out as much as you can about the product, about the client, about what they're trying to sell, how they sell it, who their customers are, and then find out that singular, punchy, main, unique selling proposition that we can turn into a great piece of radio commercial. So with that in mind, I hope I've just pulled together 4. Great, I think we've got a thumbs up. We're going to play that. I've just put together 4 ads. And I could have pulled together 4 different ones on any given day. I've just got 4 ads that I think do that. I think when you listen to these ads, What they all do is they pick one thing and punch it in onto it, and they just really go for it, and they just sell you one idea. And that way you can get something emotional and clear and crisp. It's when you get those clients that say, okay, I'll take a 30-second ad, and can you mention that, we've got a sale now on 50% off all carpets at Carpet Discount Warehouse. Oh, and can you also mention that we've got new stock coming in on Thursday from Italy, new gorgeous Italian. Oh, and our opening hours are really important. We need to mention opening hours. We're open late on Saturday and half days on Sunday. And we've got plenty of free parking outside. We think that's a really unique selling point. And if you don't mention that, no one will come. Can you put our website address? Oh, and can we put a telephone number in? Because people do like to call up and ask if we're open. And rather than spending time saying no at that point and disappointing the client, I mean, you don't do that. You don't sort of say no bluntly. But we need to educate them on what radio is good at. Emotional connectivity. You need just saying one thing well. People look this stuff up on the internet. People know how to Google Carpet Discount Warehouse and find out all those details. They don't need to be told. They just want to know why I should buy a beautiful new carpet from you. What's the emotional pull? Let's talk about that whole emotional connection with buying a new carpet. Let's get to the crux of that. Discuss that and try and veer them away. Tell them why radio is so good. Tell them why it's so emotionally connective. You know, I always, often in my workshops, I'll talk about the idea of if you had some great news to tell. I like, if I ever get involved in client meetings, I'll normally use this. If you had a great piece of news to tell a friend, something wonderful's happened, you're having a baby or you're getting married or whatever it is, you've got a great piece of news, how do you tell your best friend about that news? Do you write it down on a piece of paper, draw a little picture and put a headline above it and show it to them? Or maybe get your phone out, make a little video, make a 30-second film of you enacting out the whole scenario. Do you tweet them? Or do you sit down over a cup of coffee and use your voice, use your emotion, use your own tone of voice, your own expressiveness, your own words, because they know you, they're your friend, to tell them this exciting news? They can hear the warmth and the timbre of your voice and the way you sort of express it. That's what you do. That's what we all do. That's what we love to do. Siobhan was telling about storytelling before. Fantastic. That's what we do as a culture. We love telling stories to each other. And that's what radio is. It's like whispering in someone's ear. So that's what we need to think of it as. And if we start whispering, you wouldn't sort of start whispering opening times into someone's ear. 0800 724 3422. Or book online. We tell them the emotional stuff, the stuff that's connected. They can look the rest up. And it's that changing that way we sell, and creativity flows out of that. So sorry, I was going to play these 4 ads. So these 4 ads, again, I could have chosen any others on any other given day, but I think they all do that. They all pick one thing and go into it. So let's play the ads if we can. They're just back to back.
This is the final call for anyone with remaining holiday to kindly proceed to the EasyJet website. I repeat, this is the final call. Please proceed urgently to easyjet.com to use up your remaining holiday this year in one of our fantastic European destinations from only $29.99. On behalf of EasyJet, we wish you a very pleasant flight. Thank you. One way per person, 2 flying. Limited availability. See easyjet.com.
With all the intelligence of the original, just a bit more relaxed. FT Weekend. Smart, but casual.
Beef Wellington.
Women still do most of the cooking at home.
Steak tartare.
But when it comes to cooking professionally,
pork loin.
Or running restaurant kitchens,
sirloin.
It's male.
Cock over.
Very male. In this Saturday's Irish Examiner, we speak to the women behind Athru, a conference looking at male domination of the culinary arts. The Saturday Irish Examiner.
engine sing.
So like I said, I could have chosen for any other four. I just love each one of those for just being brave enough to take one idea. So with the EasyJet one, it was just, you've got spare time, book a holiday now. That idea of, oh yeah, I've got a few days left. Let's just go online and I can book something now. Didn't go into too much detail. Yes, it gave a couple of prices. Yes, it had T's and C's in there, the dreaded T's and C's, but they did it quite well, I think. The FT one was probably hard hearing all four just sort of put together like that. The FT one I love. It's just a piece of music for 25 seconds of the 30 seconds. No voice at all, just a piece of music that goes from this very classical piece to a very jazzy piece, just seamlessly, and then says it's the same old thing, it's the same sort of formal thing, but relaxed at the weekends for the FT, which is brilliant. They just say one thing, and it works because we emotionally connect with that. I understand it, and in a way, I paint more of a picture in my mind of what's going on. The whole theatre of the mind thing, which we all know about. We just create more behind that story than is told. And then the National Examiner one was great, just talking about, just going on and on about the fact that sort of chefing is male-dominated, professional chefing is male-dominated, and we need to address that. And then finally, the Shell one, again, a piece of music, just almost completely a piece of music, just with an end line, which is so very, very brave. So in summary, I know it sounds like I'm throwing this back to you, but a lot of the time you're going to be writing these things yourself, if you're out there sort of taking briefs. So do yourself a favor, you will write creatively, trust me, when you spend more time on that brief, when you spend more time educating those customers. And maybe it's a case, I don't know, I'm sort of treading on your ground here a little bit, of not going after as many of those people who really probably shouldn't be advertising on radio, because they're not invested in it, and they're going to want to say this, and this, and this, and this, because that's what their business is about, and they're going to create a piece of advertising that no one, it's going to be wallpaper, as Avril mentioned earlier. No one's going to want to listen to that. So it's maybe going after and educating and spending more time just kind of educating and bringing on board those kind of clients who understand that there's a whole process to be done there in a brief, research, intelligence, and understanding their unique selling proposition. So the brief is everything. Please kind of look into that. That's all I have to say, I think, for now, without a presentation. But
Thanks so much for that, Damian. All very interesting, especially from the point of view of both the direct side of the business and the advertising agency side of the business. We're going to open up the floor to some questions, but I actually just wanted to ask a question, and I know, Avril, you touched on this with regards to the Barry's Tea ad. I think we can all say that every time we hear it, we know it's all about Christmas and it evokes memories and it's a lovely ad. That's 90 seconds long, and we've all, I think, as salespeople anyway, been trained that everything needs to be crammed into 30 seconds. Do you think marketeers need to be a bit braver? Do you think we need to assess that 30-second thing? Should we look at longer? Should we look at shorter? Should we look at a combination? Or if it ain't broke, don't fix it? I'm going to sort of nod to the point Damian just made there, because I think it's really important. I think, it doesn't actually matter what length the ad is, whether it's 30 seconds or whether it's a minute and a half, when you're doing one thing and doing it really well. So, a lot of the ads that you just played there, Damian, were in and around the 30-second mark, and we're still super creative and engaging and landed a message. And, they kind of reminded me that a point that I meant to kind of make earlier was, if I could have, you guys have kind of one key takeaway from this talk, it would be that radio ads should have one key takeaway, you know what I mean? I think that's hugely, hugely important. I think it totally depends on the idea, you know what I mean? The Gayburn tribute ad that we were talking about earlier, that was 30 seconds. And if it was any longer, it would have dragged, that kind of way? Like it's totally specific to what the idea calls for. And you can be so creative in 30 seconds as well. The Barry's Tea ad happens to be a bit longer, and I kind of wanted to use an example that, the story is so kind of key to it that if it was shortened, it would have felt rushed. So it was just to that particular idea, it worked well in that format. But you can be really creative in 30 seconds. But I think we need to be open
to let the idea steer and what's going to be more powerful and what's going to drive our commercial message better, you know what I mean? So rather than kind of, making the call before you've even kind of looked at the ideas, but definitely a good creative idea, it can be in 30 seconds or it can be in a minute.
The idea is good enough, the duration doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, or it sort of needs to tailor to the idea, yeah.
Right, okay.
Just not 20 seconds.
Not 20, yes, no.
Never 20 seconds.
Especially with the dreaded T's and C's. Does anyone have any questions? Are you all very shy? I'm going to ask one more then, if you don't mind. Just, sorry, Avril, going to you again with regards to the cram. I would be fairly safe in saying the majority of people know Harvey Norman, and that's very much, to me, a cram ad. There's space for those, I suppose, in one way, shape or form. They built their entire brand on bang, 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 bang. These are all our offers. So there is a space still for that kind of thing. I know, Damian, you talked a lot about evoking feelings. I think at the start, I hope no one from Harvey Norman is here, but they evoked feelings of get that off the radio. But in fairness, it worked. And you can't forget it. We all know Harvey Norman. Sorry about the Australian accent. But, there is space at times for things like that. For that kind of, or would you be? Avril's face says she is anti that.
Directors are looking at me being like, "There's no space."
Damian, do you think there's space for that?
I think you're serving two audiences, aren't you? And you have to always be aware of that. You're serving your client. That you want an effective ad. And I've heard clients go, "No, we're keeping that. We love it," and it's the most grating, horrible piece of audio you've ever heard. And they got people come in talking about it all the time. And we want to keep it, we keep it. And there was one in mind I've got from way back that was for a bicycle shop in the north of England, and it was just so awful. And he just ran it for like 5 years and wouldn't stop, and it was on. But people were turning off. It worked for him. Yeah. It worked for his audience, but people were turning off the station. So you've got two audiences. You're in the entertainment business, and it was great. Avril spoke a lot about entertainment, and that's the business we're in. We're in the entertainment business, and if people are turning off because it is just horrible, if they just feel like they're being sold something overtly, being bashed over the head, they're going to press the dial. Yeah. And so you've got to weigh those. Yes, I know I spoke about selling, sell, and as agencies and copywriters and art directors, that's our job to do that. It's not our job to win awards. It's great if we do. That's not our job. We're there to sell products for people who are paying good money for us to do that. But then we've also got to realise that people, in radio particularly, when it comes and interrupts their listening pleasure, we have to serve them as well. So it's a balance. It's got to be entertaining and it's got to be effective.
Okay, great. Oh, Peter.
Thanks, guys, for the presentations. I suppose it's more of an observation than anything else, and it's in relation to the industry. We're blessed with brilliant radio in this country, between stations and presenters and programs and so on, and we reward them every year through the IMRO Awards, which is great. But if we want to elevate the standard of radio creativity as an advertising creativity, 20% of the airtime that's devoted by every station every day is to advertising. But I think by and large, most of it is pretty average. I just wonder, from an industry point of view, is it worth looking at a category that promotes really, really good radio advertising within the IMRO Awards as a way to try and elevate the good stuff? Yeah. And I'm not saying turn the IMRO Awards into an advertising thing. It's about programming, but it's about radio content. And if 20% of the content is advertising, then maybe we should showcase and elevate the good stuff.
Yeah, no, sorry, interrupt if I'm going ahead here, but I totally agree, because we have heard it before from advertising agencies, and Avril, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the sexier thing is probably creating TV at times, and you get to travel and you get to, do something a little bit different than just sit in a room and create a radio ad. But I think that you can take people on that journey with a radio ad, that you don't need to do all of that you do with TV, and I think it's really important that we get more people excited about creating radio. So I would completely agree with you, Peter, on that. I'm not sure what you guys would think.
I would totally agree. And we were touching on what Damian just spoke about too, because we were actually talking about this outside, you know, and kind of going back to your point, Maria, about the Harvey Normans ad. It's in everyone's best interest to elevate the standard, because I think the point that Damian made is a really valid one. It's in the radio station's best interest to raise the standard as well, because if a really grating radio ad comes on, people will change the channel, and then you're going to have a drop off in listenership. So, you know what I mean? I think, and I would challenge that about, you know, it not being the sexier option. It's actually really, really enticing as a creative to work in radio advertising, because a good ad costs the same as a bad ad. You know what I mean? It's sort of, the ball's totally in your court to make it something really interesting, and it's all down to good writing and a good idea. So actually, there's something really liberating, you know, as a creative creating radio, because the onus is on you, you know what I mean, to create something that's really interesting and that stands out. So there's way more opportunity there, and you know, and maybe that's an emphasis that we need to place on, particularly for younger creatives, and you know, get people excited about it, because it's such an amazing medium, you know. So, yeah.
Great. Any other questions? Oh. One over here, and they're all coming up now.
He's not allowed to ask them.
Yeah, I've got this one already. Oh, it is. Sorry, Jonathan Barker from Sunshine 106.8 and Classic Hits. I've worked with Damian for many years, so I won't put him on the spot with anything. But it's more of an observation or a statement, I suppose, with regards to us. And this kind of goes more towards a direct copywriter. As we mentioned, when people come to Avril, they've invested in radio at that point where, you know, they've a budget and they want to see it through. Whereas from a direct perspective, client or reps are out trying to get business. And I think as an industry, what we've done is we've actually undervalued the role of a copywriter within stations, where we're fighting for deals. Look, we all know it's a competitive marketplace. It's an incredibly competitive marketplace. In order to get a deal over the line, all of us have been guilty of doing production for no fee, you know, and in a client's mind, I think that just diminishes the whole point of the thing. We should be standing back. We should be spending time. We should be showing clients that they're investing in copy that they're going to continue to use, not on one-off campaigns. And by doing that, we have to show the value in that. And by showing value in it, we have to charge for it correctly. And we have to show the client that they are investing in radio ourselves. I don't know what the guys feel on that. I'm sure you already agree, but you know, we can't live off one campaigns that, you know, a client has written the ad themselves, because and starred in and voiced it, and you know, they got their kids in to do bits of it as well. But you know, and that's the reality of it is. And when I say it's the direct copywriter is undervalued, I mean, it's in a client's mind, they believe they can write the script as well as anybody can. I know my business and I want to put my telephone number in and all the bits on it as well. So I think as an industry, as salespeople, we all should stand back and reiterate the point that, no, we have experts in this. They're paid to do this job. They have multiple years of experience, more than we do as salespeople. I genuinely don't believe salespeople should be writing any copy, by the way. I think that's ludicrous. And then pushing that point, hammer that point home. And if a client, I don't think, is willing to invest in the creative aspect of it, I know you don't want to use the word creative, but if not willing to invest in their copy correctly, well, then we shouldn't be putting them on air. I mean, it's as simple as that. We, you know, as an industry, if we want to move our ads on, if we want to, you know, to have better quality of ads and better ad breaks, well, that's what we have to do. Otherwise, we'll just go around the same circles over and over again, playing the same old ads from the same old clients, and fighting with each other, and all just putting the ads on, you know, that just sound the same. Now, I understand not all ads can be fantastic, by the way. You know, that's the reality. We do have to have a mixture of, you know, people shouting and saying things like that, but we do have to elevate them to a better standard. So maybe the guys have any thoughts on that as well?
I agree with everything you just said, Jonathan. But then you pay me, so I'm bound to.
I think the whole room, in fairness, would agree with you on that. Yeah, absolutely. I think we've time for one more question from this gentleman.
Paul Sheridan from BBC Northern Ireland here. My job title is actually creative, so no pressure there. I'm with actually 3 of my clients here right beside me. They're all editors of various levels and program strands and genre. But I'm So I'm in kind of a unique position here because I'm kind of thinking about my own experiences. But Damian, you gave an example there of the bike shop guy who had something in his head.
Yeah.
And, it reminds me often in my experience where I'm creating promotion for content, there's an expectation sometimes that some of my clients, some of my stakeholders would have that, their creative bar is quite low. And I just wonder, in the case of that chap that you mentioned there, what strategies, and maybe Avril, it's the same with you, where someone comes in and they don't have a very ambitious creative vision. What strategies would you have for trying to kind of pitch something a little bit more special to them?
I think it's a really good point, and it's something that we were actually kind of chatting about within our own agency recently. And I mean, we're really passionate about doing really interesting and really creative things in advertising, and we can't just assume that everyone is kind of consuming the same things that we are. And I think it's about developing taste for things and stuff, and if you're not being exposed to things, then you're not going to know what good radio sounds like. So I think a really simple first step is to find the radio that you find really inspiring and creative and share them with your clients and start developing that taste for good radio. It's really, really simple. And the more that you kind of share that, the more you all can get excited about kind of collaborating and creating something. Oh, there goes my phone. Creating something that inspires you all. It's such a simple thing, but I think it's really beneficial.
Okay, I think that's it. I'm getting this from everyone in the background. Thanks to both Damian and Avril for joining us, and thank you all for listening.